Another Math with Max. The dogs are around here somewhere, but I don't want to bother them because they're taking their naps and whatnot. So today we're talking about algebraic expressions, and you need your journal, and that should be it. You can use a highlighter. Sometimes a highlighter will help if you feel like you need one, or it's probably better for this, a color pencil, because there are some things we want to underline and label, and just to remind us of what we're talking about. So again, we're talking about algebraic expressions. So in your table of contents, go ahead and do number 38, algebraic expressions. So algebraic is spelled Algebraic. Okay, I know we've heard the word algebraic. We've heard the word expression before, but we haven't heard the word algebraic. So I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. So after you've written that in your table of contents, go ahead and turn to page 38, fresh, clean page on the right side. Remember, you can always pause the video and go back. If you get stuck, if you need more time to write it down, just pause it and do what you need to do. Okay, so go ahead and copy this down and I'll talk about it right now. Algebraic expressions. So it says an algebraic expression is a mathematical phrase that has one variable and one operation. And then I went into a little bit more detail explaining what is a variable and what is, first of all, you already know what your operations are. They're add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But the word variable itself means a letter that represents a number. So that is why these are called algebraic expressions. Expressions don't necessarily have an answer. And when I say they don't have an answer, it's because we don't know what that letter represents. That letter could be 10, that letter could be 5, that letter could be 27. We don't know what the letter represents at this time. So because we don't know what the letter represents, it's not an equation. An equation means you have an equal sign. 5 plus 2 equals 7. That's an equation. But for an expression, there is no specific answer. There could be many answers for an expression. So today we won't have answers. What we're actually doing is building expressions, or we're building that first part of the equation, but what we don't know is going to be the answer, and that's okay. Okay, so again, variable is a letter that represents a number. Okay, and then underneath that, you're going to write examples, and right here, you're going to write r plus 5. So that r represents your variable, and the 5 is obviously your number, and then you have a plus sign in between. There's your operation. So variable, operation, and then a number. So it's typically how we're going to see it. Variable, operation, and number. And again, the operation can change, and also the letter can change. It doesn't have to be an R. I just picked R today. It could be literally any letter in the alphabet. It does not matter. The only letter I don't like to use is X, especially if I'm doing multiplication. I don't want to write X times 5. To me, that it's gonna confuse you, right? So we're not gonna do that. Okay, so what we're doing is writing actual sentences that explain what is happening right here. What is happening to R? R, something is being added to R. 5 is being added to R. So I need to think of ways that I could say this in a sentence, okay? So I know that one way I would say that would be, what did I say? Sorry. A number increased by 5. Okay, so that's one way to say that. So underneath here, I'm going to do a little star. A number increased by 5. Okay, the word increased implies addition here because I know that my number needs to go up. So a number increased by 5. Okay, so that explains it. So if I were to see this statement, a number increased by 5, I would know that my expression is r plus 5. Okay, and that the number, and again, that number, when it says a number, that could be any letter. Any letter. So if you wanted to change this to t plus 5 or z plus 5, it's fine because we don't know what that letter represents anyway, so it doesn't matter what letter you use. Okay, so that's one way of doing that one. So I'm going to draw a little squiggly under that. Okay, and now we're going to do it reversed. Okay, so first I gave you the expression, now I'm going to give you the phrase, and we have to come up with the expression that goes with that one. So underneath my little squiggly right here, I'm going to write 15, the number 15, divided by a number R. Okay, 15, can you see that? 15 divided by, I always feel like you can't see it. 15 divided by a number R. 15 divided by a number R. So obviously we know what our operation is here. It's telling us clearly we're going to be dividing, right? So with another color, a color pencil, I'm going to underline that word divided, and on top of it I'm going to do a division symbol because it's telling me that I will be dividing something. Okay, so that's what I've done so far. Okay, I know that I'm going to be using the 15 and I'm going to be using the R. So 15, what's happening to the 15? My 15 is being divided by a number R. So all I have to simply write is 15 divided by R. Just like that. Okay, that's an easier one. 15 divided by R. So the phrase 15 divided by a number R simply means 15 divided by R. I know I keep repeating and you're like, gosh, Ms. Valdez, okay, we got it like the third time you said it, but I know I have to keep repeating it because sometimes people just need to hear it more than one time, right? Okay, the next phrase we're going to write, so again, I did a little squiggling, and the next one I'm going to write is 3 less than the quotient. Quotient, I know you know that word. Talked about that one before. The quotient of 24 and A. 24 and A. 3 less than the quotient of 24 and A. Okay? So again, 3 less than the quotient of 24 and A. All right, so this one's more tricky. So the first thing I want to do is I'm looking for keywords. So I see 3 less. Less meaning that my number needs to go down somehow, right? So I'm going to underline that word less, and I'm going to put a subtraction sign because I know that less means subtraction. Okay, so 3 less than the quotient. We know that's a keyword also. Quotient is for what? Quotient is for division. Okay, 3 less than the quotient of 24 and A. So now I'm going to go back. I don't have any other keywords here. I've done that so far. What I'm missing is my numbers. So I know I'm going to be using the number 3. Okay, I have the number 24, and my letter is R. I'm sorry, my letter is A in this case. Okay, so this is what I have so far. Okay, now in the front here, we have 3 less than. It's 3 less than the quotient of this, meaning that 3 less than, oh, my keys getting all blurred. The 3 less than is actually going to go last. It's not going to go first. It has to go after the 24 and A because then we're subtracting the 3. It's telling me that my answer is 24 divided by A, and then I'm taking away the 3. So what I really have here is parentheses. I need parentheses because I need to make sure that I'm doing 24 divided by A first, and I'm showing that with parentheses. So 24 divided by A, okay? And my answer needs to be 3 less than that. So after I figured out 24 divided by A, then I'm going to take away the 3. So on the outside, I'm going to do minus 3. Okay? So that's what I have for that one. So 3 less than the quotient of 24 and A is 24 divided by A minus 3. Now, that one's a little bit more tricky. But once you start getting into the vocabulary and you're like, oh, that's that, and this means this and that, you're going to see it in your brain and you're going to be able to write them much easier. All right, so now I'm going to go to the back. And this is practice. So we're going to continue doing that. So again, that's practice. And number 1, we're going to write. Let me change pens real quick. Number 1. It's going to be 12 more than 8 times. So again, 12 more than 8 times a number P. Okay? 12 more than 8 times a number P. So I'm going to go, right now I'm going to underline my keywords. I know my keyword is going to be more because that's telling me addition. And times is going to be telling me multiplication. So I'm going to underline those words. So more, underline it and put an addition sign at the top. And then times, underline it and put a multiplication sign on top. Okay. Now I'm going to go through and circle my numbers and my variables. I have 12 more than 8 times a number P. So 12, 8, and then P. I'm going to circle those. Okay, so I know that I have 2 operations. What I need to figure out is which one is going to go first. So it says 12 more than 8 times a number P. So even, again, like I told you before, even though this number is in front, does not mean that it goes first. Really, in reality, I need to do this part first because it's saying that this plus this is going to give me the answer, not 12 plus the product of this. Even though it could possibly give us the same answer no matter what we do, we just want to make sure that we write it correctly. So in this case, I'm actually doing 8 times the letter P first. So if I'm doing 2 operations, remember I need to separate them. I'm going to separate them with parentheses. So parentheses, 8 times P, close the parentheses, and then on the outside, I can add in that 12. Okay. And what does that kind of look like to you? It kind of looks like order of operations, doesn't it? Where you have to do this part first, and then you can add whatever you get from this to the 12. Okay. But in this case, again, we just don't know what our letter is. It could be anything. So that's number 1. Okay, we'll just do a few of them, kind of get the hang of it. I don't expect you to 100% have this down today. This is just an intro. All right, so number 2, just going to skip a line, and then number 2, we're going to write 5 less than the product 5 less than the product of X and 9. Okay. 5 less than the product of X and 9. So again, we have some keywords. We have less and we have product. Okay. Less obviously meaning to subtract. And product, we should know that one. That's multiplication. Okay. So we know, again, we're doing 2 operations. We're subtracting, and then we're multiplying. Not then, and we're multiplying. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to circle my numbers and my variable. So my numbers are 5 and 9. And in this case, my variable is X. So remember, variable is the letter. Whenever I say a variable, what's your variable? It's the letter. Okay? So right now, you should have that on this one. And it's very similar to this one up here. The 5 less is going to be after I do the product of X and 9. So in parentheses, I'm going to do X times 9 because that's what product means. And then I can go back and take away the 5. Okay, so my parentheses, X. And remember I said that before, I was like, I don't want to put an X next to a multiplication sign. So instead of doing a multiplication sign, we're actually going to do a dot because a dot can also mean multiplication. I'm going to show you right now. So X times 9, close parentheses, minus 5. Okay. So usually whenever you have an X, I don't like to do another X for the times. You can do a dot, and that also will mean subtraction. I mean multiplication, sorry. This also means multiplication. A dot can also be the same thing. So X times 9 minus the 5 because it's 5 less than all of this. So this word than is really important because it's telling me that this part is after the rest of what's happening over here. Than. Then you're thinking, how can than be a keyword? In this case, it is. Okay. Number 3, skipping a line. Number 3 is the sum. The sum of Q and 3. And that one's easy. That one's easy peasy. The sum. Guys, you've been hearing that word since you were itty bitties, since you started math, okay? Sum. Sum is clearly for addition, right? So underline it and put in a plus sign on top. Okay. The sum. Here is my variable and here is my number. So the sum, meaning I'm adding Q and 3. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that one. The sum of Q and 3. So I'm just going to put Q plus 3. There's my answer for that one. Pretty basic, right? Okay. Number 4. Just going to whip through these guys. Number 4. Oh, my hand is hurting for some reason. Quotient of B and 4. The quotient of B and 4. You already know what quotient means. We talked about it today. We talked about it a million times. Quotient is division, so I'm going to go ahead and underline it and put a division sign there. And then my variable is B and my number is 4. Okay, so clearly we are dividing B and 4. The only difference here is that there's actually 2 different ways to write B divided by 4. There's the standard way that you know, B, division sign, and then 4. So I'm going to write that down. B divided by 4. But the other way is when I talked to you guys about fractions. And I told you, and actually, you know what, we can turn back to that page. Hold on. That is page... right here. And on these division notes, I told you that this line means division. We talked about that, right? So I can do a division problem that looks like this. And also, remember, think about it, when we have an improper fraction, that line is telling me to divide. If you have 7/6, you know you have to divide 7 by 6. And how are you going to, you're going to divide it because that's what that line is telling you to do. So another way to write this would be, since it's B divided by 4, the B is on top and the 4 is on bottom. So, or B over 4. These two things mean the same thing. So B divided by 4 or B over 4 as a fraction. That's also going to mean the quotient of B and 4. Okay, so that's number 4. Keep it moving, people. Keep it moving. Let's do number 5. And you know, this is the last one. Product. Again, there's that word product. You already know. Product of 7 and M. And even though this one's super easy, we know product is multiplication, so I'm going to underline product and put a multiplication sign. 7 is my number, and M is my variable. But just like for division, there was more than one way to show multiplication. So actually, for multiplication, there was more than one way to show division, so there's going to be lots of ways to show multiplication. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways that I'm counting and that I'm seeing here. Okay, so there's the standard way. You do 7 times 4. Okay, that's one way. I'm going to put a comma so I can separate these 4 different ways. That's your basic way, 7 times 4. Then there's this other way that I showed you up here. I said where you can put the multiplication sign in between, or the dot in between, which also means multiplication. So that is one way. So I'm going to write 7.m, but again, also means multiplication. I'm going to put a comma there, just like that. Okay. Another way is, remember, do you remember when I told you when we were doing order of operations, I told you that whenever a number is right next to the, I know I can't make that. When a number is right next to the parentheses, that means to multiply. Like, for example, let me show you so you're not like, what is she talking about? Whenever you have 5 parentheses 2 times, like this, right here next to this means to multiply, right? So you would do 2 times 5 is 10, and then 10 times 5 would give you the 50. Okay, you can do the same thing here. The only thing is, in parentheses, you would put your variable, your letter. So we would actually do 7, and you don't necessarily have to put parentheses in this case. You can just put 7m. You don't necessarily need parentheses. You can simply write it just like that. So 7m really means 7 times m in this case. Okay, we don't need parentheses because we don't know what the m is anyway, so it's not like I'm separating it in any special bubble. Okay, so, and then the fourth way is with the parentheses. But again, you don't necessarily need the parentheses. So you might see it 7 parentheses, M, close parentheses. Just like that. So those are the 4 different ways to show multiplication. I know there's lots of ways for multiplication, right? So, okay. Those are all your notes for today. Hopefully most of you got it the first time. I know it can be a little bit confusing because you're using words to create expressions, and that can be a little tricky, especially if you don't know your keys, you know, product, multiplication, quotient, division, difference, subtraction, sum, addition. But there's also other ones that we saw today, times, multiplication. You're going to run into a lot of different words that represent operations. Again, your operations: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So we'll keep practicing with that, and next week I'll probably have an activity for you to make sure that you get that one down correctly also. But once you start doing it more, you know, you'll get used to it. Okay, so the rest of your centers are your writing center. You have small group with me. You're going to be working with the large grid that you can walk on. That's my favorite. And this center, and then there was something else, but I can't remember it right now. But no worries, it'll be ready for you by the time I upload this. Anyway, so the dogs are asleep, but I want to bother them, and I promise that by the next time I record, I will have my Christmas decorations taken down. Sorry. So as of today, we are only 57 days away from STAR, so it's time to buckle down. It is time to work, people. Work. And I mean it. Every day you need to be here. If mom and dad say you're not going to school, you need to ask them why and tell them I need to be there because I need to make sure that I learn. Obviously, if you're truly sick, stay home. You don't want to make everybody else sick. But if you're staying home for a silly reason, it's not going to work for us, okay? So I need you here. I need you learning. I need you ready to go, okay? So